One of our biggest challenges as marketers is thinking top down. I've got a product that I need to tell a story about. I need to convince people to buy it. But what if the opposite was true and in fact better? It was so good, it was such a great experience that once people found you, they never leave. Hello and welcome to the CMO Show for 2026. I'm your host, Mark Jones. It's great to see you again. The CMO Show is brought to you by ImpactInstitute in partnership with our friends at Adobe. And we are going to kick off the year with an interview I've been looking forward to for a long time. Lena is the new country manager for Amazon here in Australia. This is a global organization, as you well know, that has been around for a long time, but only kicked off their B2B procurement, purchasing business for marketers in June last year, 2025, of course. So how's it going? What's it like starting a new Amazon business in Australia? How do you tell that story? What sort of marketing works? What sort of marketing maybe doesn't work? And Amazon famously has an obsession with customer obsession. So what does that look like? And then, of course, we all want to know what's it like to work there. If you really have to write big, long memos, what's that experience like? Let's get into the interview. Lena, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
I wanted to kick off by chatting about the Little Bo Peep campaign. Now, for a big B2B company, you've gone something that's kind of cute and fun, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I love the Little Bo Peep campaign. Thank you for asking about it. So we launched the localized version of a global campaign, Little Bo Peep, which really tells the story of, Little Bo Peep struggling with her flock of sheep and, then discovering Amazon business's smart business buying tools and just transforming herself into a fashion powerhouse. And I love that story. I love the playfulness of it. And I also love just the appropriateness for sort of what Amazon business is all about, which is, really empowering small businesses to do more without sort of having to think about the small business buying that's potentially just kind of a waste of time and something that should be smart and automated and not be a time suck. Yeah, I love the idea of a B2B campaign that is a bit playful and a bit cheeky
and not boring, quite
and
frankly.
Not boring.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for saying it.
Doesn't all have to be not boring.
Yeah.
You mentioned localizing it, which is one of the great challenges and joys of working in a multinational here. Any insights into what you thought about as you localized it for this market?
Yeah, look, Amazon Business globally, it's such a big brand that it has an incredible marketing team behind it. And we've done, as Amazon Business Global, quite a lot of campaigns, including, a range of sort of that fairy tale theme or, that sort of common zeitgeist kind of, I think they did like maybe I don't think they did Jack and the Beanstalk, but something similar. And this one really seemed like it would appeal to Australian businesses. It's very locally relevant, that fairy tale, or that rhyme, I should say. And so, yeah, that was the one we chose. We really didn't have to make a lot of changes to it. Really, the main thing was just having the Australian voiceover for it.
Yeah.
But also, because Amazon Business Australia is such a new brand, we only launched last year as opposed to in the US, Amazon Business has been live for 10 years. It's a really well-known brand, really well-known B2B brand. Part of our sort of thinking was really also around like just introducing the brand for the first time and really trying to explain exactly what it does and exactly who it can be for and how local businesses can use it. And so that was part of our thinking and part of our sort of choice mechanisms around choosing that specific campaign.
Now, for people who won't know your background professionally, you've done quite a few product manager roles and most recently at the AFR, where, of course, I used to be a journalist as well, so that's kind of a fun thing to have in common.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what did you learn about Australian businesses in that context that you've applied here? Because I think there's a real sensibility that's important when it comes to understanding how to position an organisation. Just to pick up on what you were saying about introducing people to a brand and really understanding who those people are.
Yeah, I have had some varied roles, a non-traditional career path, as I like to say. I think, the constant career-wise for me has probably been digital transformation of really traditional businesses. And so at the AFR, I worked on an amazing project, which was actually launching AFR's first mobile app. And I remember at the time having lots of conversations with people saying, oh, nobody reads their business news on a mobile app. People want a newspaper or at least an iPad to read over at breakfast. And I just remember thinking, like, digital transformation is so key here, and broadening your audiences and really thinking about, who your audience might be, who that doesn't look like you.
Yes.
And that isn't maybe the AFR reader of 15, 20, 25 years ago. And I think that Australian businesses back then were continuously evolving, and I think that has remained true to today. Business customers and business buyers are as varied as humans themselves. And, Amazon Business serves everybody from sole traders to NGOs, government organizations, huge enterprises, really anybody that's buying anything to keep their business running. And I think that to go back to the AFR, that is kind of similar. Business is what makes the world go round, and just putting it in a box and saying it's only for this kind of audience is really limiting.
Yeah, and that internal stakeholder story is an interesting one that maybe cuts through to the experience of many marketers, is that when you're in a transformation program, there's a huge element of the unknown. We don't know how this is going to work out exactly, and we sort of know a little bit about them, but there's also some bold steps that have to be taken. When you launch the brand and you're part of the whole team that do that, what were some of the unknowns from an experience point of view?
Yeah, I think, one of the benefits of working for a global company is that you have the learnings that have happened in other countries. But of course, Australia is super unique in a lot of ways. I think probably for my internal global stakeholders at Amazon, it's been really eye-opening just how unique this country is, and how much more human to human interaction we actually still have and still value in a way that I think has really changed in other parts of the world. And so, just building a brand here and earning the trust of business stakeholders is so key, and is something that we're really trying to do each and every day. And also to just really learn about what Australian businesses specifically are looking for, and also what's been holding them back until now in their own digital transformation journeys. So we're trying to make our products as easy and as accessible as possible. But we're also really conscious that actually the storytelling part of why do you need this in your organization is going to be really key here.
I'm glad you said the bit about the personal side of B2B, which I think the Australian business psyche is very personal. We like to know our suppliers. We like to know 100%. How they think and feel. And would you say that was the main difference, or one of the main differences compared to the other 11 new countries that opened?
Yeah, look, I think that, when Amazon launched in Australia, I think 8 years ago, it really changed our expectations of the retail sector. Like we weren't used to fast shipping. We certainly weren't used to free shipping. We weren't used to having sort of the vast selection that we now have. And so I think that Amazon's launch really lifted the game for the retail sector. I don't think that necessarily everybody was unhappy with how things were, but I think we sort of changed customer expectations in the B2C space.
How would you make a distinction between the B2B and the B2C sides of Amazon?
Yeah, Yes, excellent point. So what is Amazon Business? So really Amazon Business is Amazon's B2B store. So you can imagine all of the things that customers have come to know about Amazon, the selection, the convenience, the speed. And Amazon Business is sort of built on top of that store with features that are really designed with organizations in mind. So you can manage your organization's spend, the access for your team of what they can and can't buy. You can really, we like to say it's almost like having a procurement person without having a procurement person for small businesses. And then for larger organizations, it's really around integrating with your existing systems, but also, just sort of modernizing them. So we know that the tail end 20% of any organization's procurement is actually where you'll find 80% of your suppliers. And that is just a huge time suck on any organization. And so by, trying to bring all that together, bring it to one place, but still having all of those same suppliers available, you can really stop your team from working on the small stuff and empower your procurement teams to work on the stuff that's really going to move the needle for your organization and really push your business forward rather than sitting around choosing, which paper towels to get. Just do that with the click of a button.
How do you build trust in this environment compared to what I would say is the typical B2C Amazon experience where we know that if I, and I'm speaking as a customer myself, like if I buy a book, I can choose, where it comes from, and I know that it's going to come in the next day or so, depending on whatever the expectations were set, right? There's a pretty simple, almost 2-click, I'd suggest. Like you go to your I'm just thinking how you go checkout and then it's all set and then press, another click and you're done. I mean, it's very, very clean and simple. How have you built trust in the B2B environment with that sort of a mindset?
I mean, that simplicity is exactly what we're after in the B2B environment, and that's exactly what the product is. And so if you think about as a consumer, you're now used to that like ease and simplicity. And given that procurement professionals are also humans.
Yes.
Like they're used to that simplicity in their day-to-day lives. Why can't you have that same simplicity, that same, ease of use in your B2B buying world? And so that is what the product is. I think you actually articulated it perfectly, is we're just here to make business buying simple.
What about governance and risk and security, some of those things? Enterprises will have pretty strict approaches to that sort of stuff. Where does my data live? All that sort of thing. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about Amazon, I think, is the extreme focus on data governance, data security. As a consumer, I feel extremely comfortable with where my data is kept, with as a marketer, sometimes it's frustrating Amazon's strict controls on and obsession with privacy for customers. As a customer, on the other hand, that makes me feel really, really good. And I think that is even more important, as you say, in with enterprise organizations. And we focus a lot on their needs, whether that's, in our businesses with AWS or, again, with Amazon Business now.
Now, I've got 2 obligatory AI questions.
Okay.
Because every interview has to have obligatory AI questions if it doesn't come up. And the first one is about how you're using AI to improve the experience. So, obviously it's a walled garden in terms of how it gets used in your customer experience, but how are you making it better for people on the procurement side?
Yes, look, Amazon's had, machine learning and AI for a long time. It's such a key part of how our site runs and how we, the search experience that customers have online, the personalization that you get, again, as a consumer or as a business, the sort of the products that get surfaced based on your own buying and your own purchasing needs. And so that, continues to improve and continues to get enhanced. But really the benefit for B2B buyers is what we've seen for so long in the B2C space, which is that, rather than almost starting from scratch every time, you are being surfaced content then products that are the right fit for you based on the ML, the machine learning, and the AI tools that we have. I think that, as you touched on earlier, we've launched a spend analyzer dashboard. I think this week or last week, this week, which is a great new tool that actually it really empowers organizations with data on what they are spending and gives them tips on how they can be more thoughtful with their business purchasing in order to meet their organization's needs.
The other thing that a lot of marketers are now getting their heads around, and this is potentially what's more in the SME and SME and SM sort of medium-sized organisations, are thinking a lot about AI summaries in the large language learning models, right? Because if we think about marketers having to say, all right, now I need to organise my content, my website, our offerings, so that it gets surfaced in an AI summary, it just changes the way that we think about a lot of those old models of SEO and marketing, how we build awareness. There's lots of stuff going on in that area that I find quite fascinating.
Yeah, I also find it fascinating and probably a little scary, but look, I really grew up and started my career in the SEO world, and so I feel like my expertise really lay there, and I think that it's kind of a confronting time for us more old school marketers,
right?
But I think that there's so much cool stuff that you can now do with AI to sort of take away some of the really churny work that a lot of my marketing team were doing. And so I'm trying to find the areas, the things that AI can assist me and my team with, while just reducing the panic as well about the things that we can't control.
Now, that leads me to ask about other country managers. Like, is there some sort of WhatsApp group channel chat? Like, what do you? I can't imagine that's true. But like, how do you learn from these, peers and people around the world?
Well, there is a Slack channel.
There you go. There is a Slack channel.
Yes.
Okay.
So, but Amazon has a writing culture, which
I've heard about
really. It's a funny thing as a journalist, as a former journalist, to find myself in a corporate role where, my one real skill set is being able to write, and all of a sudden it's really valued. So it feels very, very lucky, very luxurious. But the writing culture is really key, I think, to Amazon's success, because the thing with a written document, sorry, just to jump in, but this is where you go into a meeting and you've got a prepared document. Everybody sits around the table and reads it, and then we talk. Is that right? Exactly.
That's
exactly
right.
Yeah. So everybody sits. So it's so confronting when you first join Amazon.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Everybody walks in and silently sits, and there's paper, and everybody's got their red pen.
There's no quiet music in the background.
There's no quiet music in the background. Everyone is just heads down, reading and writing notes, and then you discuss. And the thing that gives you is you are all on the same page.
Literally.
Literally. Thank you. Yes. But I think that when you come into a PowerPoint presentation, it is very easy to hide things in a PowerPoint, right? Just some things just don't go up. It's very, very hard to hide in a six-page document, and so the information is really captured in a really in a really truthful but also really data-driven way. So it's not just storytelling, it's sort of the matching of storytelling with data. And that process, I think, allows you, whether you're in the room or not, to then really be up to speed on the things that are happening in teams around the world and organizations that you would otherwise have very little visibility into. And so that, you know, being able to have those documents and read and take those learnings from what's happening in Japan or in Europe or in the US, and, you know, obviously on a much smaller scale, apply those to Australia, I think has been really important for me as I upskill in the role, but also, you know, is just such a standard process at Amazon, and it's how Amazon is able to sort of have leaders stay across details in so many varied forums.
I presume there's some sort of template for things people are looking for, like context, the data bit, the story bit, that like how does it get organised? And I guess I asked that through the lens of a marketer, thinking, well, like pitching a campaign, you've got this glorious bit of creative I want to show you, but now I've got to write this whole story first. Is that right?
Yeah, it's hard. You know, it is hard when you first start because you know, especially for some of the agencies that we work with, they really have to learn to write how as Amazonians would.
Wow.
And it's a steep learning curve, but I think it drives really great outcomes, because I think that there is something about the written word that, again, just doesn't allow you to sort of fluff around and hide. It becomes,
unless you used AI to write it.
Well, yes, and I think that's
tell.
Well, firstly, you can tell, but you know, to go back to your previous AI question, writing doesn't come naturally to everyone.
Yeah,
and especially, you know, if English is your second language, or if you are, you know, from a more technical background, it's hard, and in a writing culture, that can be really challenging. And so that is a great use of AI internally, is to help people for whom writing is not, you know, they're not maybe journalists, and writing is not their forte.
Yep.
To allow them to still express their thoughts and ideas in a way that that is acceptable to leadership. But yeah, it's one of the great uses of AI actually internally, and has been definitely embraced by teams.
So if a CMO or a marketer was to take some lessons out of our conversation, and advice that you would share in terms of building an organisation with this product marketing, storytelling, data-driven, written kind of mindset, what would be, you know, some advice for marketers going into the year?
Yeah, I think that marketing something you believe in is always easier. And I have been very lucky throughout my career. I have gotten to, with some very minor exceptions, I have gotten to work on things that I truly believe in. And I think when that is the case, the marketing comes more naturally. And I don't know if that's advice as such, but I think it is something to think about when, if as the marketer for a product or for an organization, if it's not happening, maybe it's the wrong product for you.
Yeah.
And obviously that is, you know, when not every role anybody's ever going to have is for their dream product. My career started in media, and so for a long time, you know, even when I moved into product management and was focusing more on the marketing and the product marketing, I could still have customer obsession because the customer I was serving sort of looked a lot like me, like it was like people who were interested in media. And when I moved to Amazon, I worked on a program that's now called Prime Access, which was all about giving low-income households in the US a discount on their Prime membership. So all about bridging the e-commerce divide, addressing some of America's food desert challenges, giving underserved customers and households the access to that same, you know, selection, speed, convenience that we all expect and come to rely on. And that was a really different kind of customer for me to serve. When you're truly customer obsessed and when you're truly focused on the needs of the customer, the storytelling comes more naturally because when you start from the customer, you can really work backwards on on positioning your product and positioning your programs to meet their specific needs.
How did you get your mindset around that customer that you hadn't had experience with? Because I think that's probably a nice way to wrap it up, is to be thinking about, well, there's gaps that I'm always going to have. I may not have the benefit of all the data and the knowledge and the insights that you do. Is it literally as experiential as getting out there and meeting people? What else would you say?
Yes, that's what I did. I went out, I met people, I spoke to a lot of people in underserved communities, I spoke to organizations serving them, I read a lot. I mean, there's a lot of studies, you can always read a lot, right?
Yeah.
But there's nothing like speaking to an individual person and understanding that, I live in Washington, D.C., but I work 3 jobs, my child is disabled, I don't have a car, for me to go to the shops is going to take an hour and a half, and so I shop at the convenience store that's located nearby, and they're charging 5 times more per item than in a supermarket, and I have less money to spend on that. Like, when all of those things come together and you think, well, there's a solution for that, then explaining that solution is really, really easy. Or easier, I shouldn't say really easy. I think it's when we start with the product and go down to the customer that I think sometimes the messaging becomes a little bit irrelevant. But when you run focus groups, or when you meet individuals and just ask them questions, just I think that, as a journalist, that's a thing you just learn how to do. You just ask people about themselves.
Yeah, it's normal.
It's really normal. It's probably a specific personality type. I mean, as you well know.
I do.
But it's, I mean, people know what they want and what they need, and it doesn't mean that you can always build those things or you can always tell that story through your marketing channels. But when you can, I think it's really powerful and really effective.
Well, one of my old editors used to say to me, "There's nothing going on at your desk that your readers care about." In other words, get out there,
Get
right?
out there.
Right. So first-person research is a valuable tool. That's a nice human way to turn the conversation. Thank you so much, Lena Zach, for joining us on the CMO Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed the interview. It was really great to hear Lena's perspective getting the business up and going. And I wanted to just touch on the campaign that we spoke about, Little Bo Peep. Of course, it's all about fun, about fairy tale, about mythology, but finding a way into what's otherwise a pretty boring part of the world. Really. Procurement is not that exciting. However, it's critical to how we all do our work. It's a huge business, and globally it's a multi-billion-dollar business. So being able to have some fun, find a creative angle, of course, is a great reminder to all of us, even if the business that you're working in, maybe the industry that you're working in, is not all that fun from a consumer perspective. There's always a great way to tell a story and to make it far more interesting than perhaps you first realise. So that's it for this episode of the CMO Show, brought to you by Impact Institute in partnership with Adobe. See you next time. The CMO Show is produced by Impact Institute in partnership with Adobe. Impact Institute is a professional services firm for purpose-led organisations. Our unique blend of impact consulting, brand storytelling and event services help our clients create meaningful change. This episode of the CMO Show was brought to you by your host, Mark Jones, that's me, and producers Kate Zadell and Kirsten Babels. Our audio engineers are Ed Chang and Daniel Marr. And a quick shout out to Adobe Experience Cloud, which gives digital businesses everything they need to design and deliver great customer experiences. Visit business.adobe.com to learn how Adobe can help transform your business.